Well, hello there, Vlad here. Welcome to my studio and welcome to the first episode of Master of the Basics, a video series where we have a master of certain skill, craft, however you want to call it, teach us the basics. Simple as that, really. And I have a very special guest today, Ronquillo. That's how you pronounce it, right?
Perfect, Vlad. Yes! You got it.
Got it from the first time. This is a good start. RJ is going to talk about how to prepare for a gig, and I really couldn't have had a better guest to do that because he's played with some really amazing artists. I just checked your website: Stevie Wonder, Ricky Martin.
Yeah.
Stone Sour. That's quite a kind of repertoire, like really different style.
Yeah, it's quite a range of different artists.
That's cool. That's cool. So, yeah, as I said, couldn't have had a better guest to start the series off. Let's dive in to the first question right away. So, how do you go about learning the songs? And I guess we're talking from my perspective, in the sense that I mostly do like one-off gigs somewhere. We get a set list, we rehearse once, twice, maybe few more times, and then it's the show time. So how would you prepare for a gig like that?
That's actually a good way to prepare for a gig. I never thought about that. I mean, with any gig, obviously, there's a range of different levels of gigs. You could be playing with a bar band, you could be playing with a touring band, but if you approach it like the way you approach it, as if you only have one rehearsal or a sound check to get everything right, you have to be that prepared, I think. That's extremely important. As far as, in general, when I prepare for gigs, whether it's like a small gig or a big gig, what I normally do is I'll listen to the material first before I even pick up a guitar. So what I like to do is I like to get the music really in my brain. So I know the arrangements, I know where the verses are, the choruses, the bridges, all that stuff. Before I even try to learn the actual chords, I want to know how the song goes.
Yep.
And from there, like I'll spend maybe a day or two just listening. And then I'll sit down with a guitar and just kind of learn the basic stuff. I guess it depends also if you're playing with another guitar player, you kind of have to choose which parts you guys are going to play individually.
Yep.
Which you can kind of coordinate with the other guitar player, but sometimes it's better to learn everything, and then when you get to rehearsal, kind of divvy it up. Like say you play this part, I'll play this part, and everything. So sometimes I'll try to learn as many parts of the guitar the guitar parts in a song as possible, just so I'm prepared that way.
Yep.
And I do write down a cheat sheet. I won't go on like a full out chart with notation necessarily, but here in Nashville we have a thing called the Nashville number system. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, or if anyone out there is, but basically instead of Roman numerals, that we normally use for like in jazz theory or whatever, it's basically just regular Arabic numerals, so 1 2 3 4 5. And the way that it's designed, it's kind of designed in a way that you write the chart out with the numbers, so if you get to the rehearsal or the gig and they want to change the key, it's pretty easy to transpose.
Makes a lot of sense.
So that works for the majority of popular music, whether it's rock or country, R&B, stuff like that. And there's a bunch of videos on YouTube about it. I kind of touched on that stuff in a video I did a couple years ago. But if it's a gig where it's really riff based, so like for instance the Stone Sour gig, I had to learn 20 some odd songs in a week. Wow. And all of those songs I couldn't write out Nashville numbers for. It's just impossible. So I mean I went to Ultimate Guitar and looked at tabs first. It's hilarious how
I didn't expect that, but yeah, I guess it makes sense.
I literally did what any other kid would do. Not that I'm saying I'm a kid, But I went on YouTube, tried to find out if there were lesson videos on some of these songs, and learned as much as I could. And with that, I didn't really write down the riffs. Actually, no. So I do this weird thing where I kind of write out tab, but it's not on lines. It's just kind of like, for me, my mental head, you know, I'll write like 035 or something if I'm playing.
I've done that actually, so I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, just as a reminder.
Yeah.
And I, you know, with that gig, I had to memorize everything. It wasn't a gig where I could actually have a chart or a cheat sheet in front of me. That was one thing that was hard about that gig, was the memorization is difficult. When I do certain gigs here in Nashville where I can have a chart, I'll write the chart out and then that's it. I won't like practice it. I'll just show up to the gig. As long as I have a chart, I can get through the gig fine. But memorizing is like a whole nother couple days of work. And
wow, yeah.
The way I do it is just kind of play it over and over and over again. That's really the only way I can memorize things, is just repetitiveness. But, you know, having a little cheat sheets, little cheat number things just to remember parts helps. And eventually, if you run the set over and over again, then you'll remember it. Yeah, but that's pretty much the process I do. When I go to gigs where I can take a chart, I'll usually either have it on paper or I'll use my iPad. There's a couple apps that I use that are escaping me right now. But there's one that's specifically for Nashville number system. And sometimes I'll make my own PDFs where I'll have Nashville numbers and then I'll cut out a little bit of tab stuff that I wrote out for like signature licks or intros and outros, and I'll stick them in the PDF. So it's a little bit overly organized compared to my colleagues that just have like scratch paper that they bring to the gig. But, you know, whether you're writing a chart or you're trying to memorize it, it's just a matter of time and work and repetition.
Yeah. Well, I guess my next question was that, like, do you memorize everything or is it okay to use a cheat sheet? But I mean, I guess it depends on the gig. If you're playing in a rock band, like having charts isn't really an option, I guess. Yeah,
it really depends. For me, as someone that's watching a band, I get cringy when I see someone reading a chart on stage. But, you know, I understand that's the only way to get through the gig, especially if, you know, a lot of people here in Nashville are so busy that they don't have time to memorize a whole set. Yeah. So from a visual perspective, it's probably better to not use charts, or at least look like you're not using charts. Yeah. But sometimes, you know, it's a job. You can't get away from it. If you can memorize it, that's awesome. But it's okay to use charts on certain types of gigs. Like if you're a house band, like I'm doing a gig in next month where I have to learn probably like 25 songs. And I always use an iPad for that just because that's just the nature of the gig. But, you know, when you're performing, I always say try not to have your head buried in your chart. You know, at least look up now and then and smile and pretend you're having a good time. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah. All right, so you've learned the songs, roughly at least. What are you packing with you besides like the obvious? We're talking about guitar players here, so guitars, amps, pedals, whatever, like gear-wise you have. What else are you packing besides that? Well, if I'm using my charts, I'll bring the iPad and then I'll bring one of those iPad holders that you attach to a mic stand. Yeah, makes sense. Because it looks better than having an actual music stand. True. And sometimes I'll actually bring a paper copy, just in case, you know, my iPad goes down or, it disappears sometime between soundcheck and the gig or whatever. So I'll always have I forgot to mention that when I do write out charts, I will write them out on paper first and then put them on the iPad. So I won't go directly to the iPad. So I'll always have 2 copies.
Yeah. Do you feel it also helps you to memorize them better by writing down? I know some people.
Yeah.
Some people have that. They like when they write stuff down, then they actually remember it.
Yeah, it does help because you're actually writing out the arrangement.
Yeah.
So it does help you know the arrangement and kind of give you a head start on practicing that aspect. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Other than that, a pencil in case you got to change something, because that's happened a lot of times where like the artist changes the arrangement at soundcheck, so we have to like add certain things.
Sure.
What else have I brought? Snack. I'm kind of like, granola or nuts or something to snack on, because sometimes rehearsals or sound checks can get long, and a lot of gigs are about our hurry up and wait game. So there's a lot of downtime that I've noticed where you show up mega early to do a sound check or a rehearsal, and then you've got a couple hours between there and the gig. So bring a book, bring some snacks, and your smartphone to play video games on, I guess.
Sure. Do you bring like backups for everything? Guitars, amps, pedals? A
good question. I don't bring any backups for pedals.
Okay, I get
on
that.
A typical gig, I'll bring an extra 1/4-inch cable for sure.
Smart.
Just in case someone else in the band might need one as well. And for amps, I don't bring a backup amp unless I'm on a big production tour.
Sure.
For sure you need a backup amp, because that's kind of a more high-profile thing, and if any of your equipment goes down, whether it's during a performance or while on the road, then you could be screwed. So it's always good to have at least a backup amp.
Yep.
And for guitars, it really depends. If I have enough energy myself to bring multiple guitars, I will. But I have some hacks that I do if I only want to bring one guitar. And I've done like entire week tours with just one guitar. And the reason for that is, on all of my touring guitars and most of my gigging guitars, I always put Graphtec saddles in the bridge. And probably in the past 18 years, I've never broken a string. So it's not an ad for Graphtec, but they really do work.
Yeah. Sure.
I've been confident enough to only bring one guitar on the road.
Wow.
And I'm totally confident that I'm not going to break a string.
Interesting.
And also, so there's a couple times where I've had to bring, where it would have been beneficial for me to have a guitar tuned in E standard, a guitar tuned in E flat, and then a baritone guitar. But there's one product that I use all the time here, and it's the Digitech drop pedal. Yeah. Which I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's kind of like a whammy pedal, but it only drops the pitch.
It's fantastic.
It only drops it down by increments, and I've used that for all of those reasons. Like I can go down a half step, and it still plays great. It still tracks great, and I've also gone down to B and used my regular guitar as a baritone on certain things.
That's cool.
So that's a good product to have if you only want to bring one guitar for something you'll need multiple tunings for. It's great.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm afraid the drop has been discontinued, unless I'm wrong. I think I talked about this with Josh Allen from Guitar Pros Demos while we were at Houston Kettner. We were trying that pedal out, and I'm afraid it might be discontinued, which is a shame.
Gosh. Well, I'm glad I have
wrong,
one.
But I think that was the case. That's a gig saver. Like that thing is cool.
Yeah, and the great thing is it works good. Like I'm kind of a purist, so I'm always kind of reluctant to try digital things that are, pitch shifting things, and I was very impressed and surprised at how well it tracked. Like almost no latency, and it sounded great. And I've used it, on tours. I've used it live and totally confident the way it works.
Yeah. Okay, so you've prepared for the gig, both kind of charts-wise. You got your gear. Something that I feel a lot of, especially like beginning musicians, don't think about is what happens and what you should prepare for when you arrive to the place. Like, what happens there? So I guess my question is like, what should you prepare? What you should be prepared to do when you actually arrive there? Obviously, you take your own gear, but I'm guessing there's other stuff happening as well.
So in situations where I'm loading my gear in myself and it's at a club or a wedding gig, a lot of times I'll first leave my gear in the car and walk up to find out where the stage is, where we're playing. Because a lot of times I'll have to cart in an amp or something, and I want to get make sure if there's an elevator or whatever. So a lot of times I'll just walk up with my gig bag, maybe, just to say, hey, I'm a musician here, and find out where I'm supposed to go, talk to managers or people that are running the event, making sure, this is the stage setup, you can load in through here and this way. I definitely don't just get out with all my gear and roam around and trying to find out where I'm going. That's just a waste of energy to me. So I'll always walk up with as little as possible so I know exactly where I'm going. And then, I use a cart and put my amp and my pedal board on there and whatever other guitar stands or other guitars. And roll it up and just kind of, make sure it's okay to set up at that time. And make sure once you're set up, it's okay to make noise. Because a lot of times you can't make noise until a certain time, or you can't do a sound check. So just plug in. And I guess the thing to do is to just not get your stuff set up and start noodling. That's always kind of like an amateur move. Wait till it's okay to make sounds. And just kind of do as little as possible to make sure your sound is on par and how you want it. Because I have friends, and I'm not going to call them out, but they'll show up to a sound check or a gig and like basically play a concert for us. And just like, come on, man, your gear sounds fine. You don't have to practice and everything. So if you're gonna like practice or warm up, turn your volume off, just kind of noodle around, but don't have your amp on.
Makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, that's kind of how I get the gig started.
I guess the main rule is like be polite to other people and like don't just set up your own stuff and start blasting it at full volume.
Yeah, that's the worst.
I've witnessed that a couple of times in my life as well.
Yeah, that's very common, especially with guitar players too.
Yeah, that's the thing. So how do you usually try to position yourself on the stage? Let's say it's a fairly traditional band, like maybe 2 guitar players, bass player, drummer, singer, maybe a keyboard, something like that. How do you usually try to position yourself on the stage?
Like physically position myself on stage?
Yeah.
Well, I guess sometimes it's not even up to me. Sometimes it's up to the artist or the production, like where I'm supposed to be.
Sure.
It really I guess it depends on your monitoring situation. Obviously, if you have in-ear monitors and you have a great mix, you can be anywhere on stage.
Yeah.
But if it's a situation where you don't have monitors and you're kind of relying on everybody's amp or, just the sound from the drums, I like to be as close to the drums as possible, probably.
Oh, interesting.
Like I like to be close to the drums and the bass. Like I need to hear them more than if there was another guitar player.
Yep.
Because they're kind of, they're the heart of the band. So if I'm relying on just the sound from their amp and the kick drum or whatever, then I need to be close enough to hear them.
Makes a lot of sense.
If a lot of times if I'm playing with another guitar player, unless there are some like very distinct parts that I need to hear from them, I don't have to have them in my mix necessarily.
Yeah.
sometimes I prefer it not to be in my mix, just because it can screw me up, or whatever. So there's been times where I've been on bandstands with huge bands where I had like half of the band out of my mix, and just had drums and bass and maybe a little bit of vocal.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's kind of, I like to keep it simple. I know a lot of people that do touring work, and we all have in-ears that, need to hear a little bit of everything. But I'm like the easiest. I'm just like, give me kick, snare, a little bit of bass, and a lot of me, and that's fine. Sometimes I don't even have the vocalists in my mix.
Really?
Yeah, because I can hear, a lot of times I can hear, the main speakers, and that's enough for me,
Yeah, I was just about to ask, like, do you kind of are you still able to get into the mood and like feel of the whole band? But I guess, there's a lot of stuff bleeding from outside anyway, so.
Yeah, I think I try to keep everything as simple as I can, just in case. The more things you have, there's more of a chance that something's going to screw up.
Yeah, sure.
Whether it's your mix or whether it's the amount of gear you have or amount of pedals you have. So it's safer to use as little as possible, I think.
Okay, so you've set up, and now you're getting nervous because this might be your first show ever, or maybe your 5th show, but it's still like you're relatively new to this. How do you deal with being nervous? Like,
so I still get nervous to this day, but I get nervous up until the first note is played, and then once we start playing, I'm cool.
Nice.
Unless something happens, like my gear goes down, and then I tighten up. I'm like, oh no. But I don't know how I deal with nerves. I mean, I don't advocate drinking or anything, but sometimes having like a drink can help calm you down a little bit. But I guess just knowing that once I start playing, I'll be fine is just that's my relief. Like I can expect that, because that's usually what happens all the time. It's like once we start playing, I'm fine and it's awesome. So I just get a little bit of nervousness, like the hour before a show or something. But it's just, as long as you're prepared and as long as you're confident with what you can do, because that's really all you have control over is your parts, your gear, then there's really nothing to be nervous about. If someone else in the band is unprepared, it might make you look bad, but knowing that you came prepared, your stuff, that should give you the confidence for, to get through the gig and not be too nervous.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a really personal question, because for years I used to have, like, my neck would kind of cramp up and it would make my hands cold, which is not cool for a guitar player.
Yeah.
So, I used to have like bad headaches and everything just before we went playing, and my hands were cold, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you, sometimes I'll warm up, make sure my fingers are loose. Sometimes, but a lot of times I'll just go up there cold and hope for the best.
Yeah. Interesting. Like, I guess it depends on people. I know some people can even get sick before, and then they'll be just fine once we start playing. But
that's extreme, nerves. But
it really depends.
Yeah, that's probably happened to me. I'm sure before my first arena gig or whatever, I was extremely nervous.
Who wouldn't be? I guess.
Yeah. But it's fun.
Yeah. So this is like a bonus question, but do you, like, the gigs you've been at, especially if you're doing like multiple shows, do you record the gigs, like take some sort of mix down from the mixing console or something to listen for feedback?
I personally don't. Sometimes sometimes the people or the musical director or like production will record a feed from the board just to have it.
Sure.
Which is great, because sometimes, like, I've been on gigs where I've had to sub it out, or other band members had to sub it out. So having the actual live performance and being able to send it to your substitute for them to learn all the arrangements, because a lot of times the live arrangements are going to be different than the album arrangements or something. So it's always good for like touring bands to have recordings of their shows just to have on hand. But with like local stuff or like wedding band stuff or corporate stuff, I don't really record stuff. I used to when I was younger, back in the day. I used to have a mini disc recorder, which I don't know if you youngins remember the mini discs, but they were like a digital.
I'm old enough to remember that though.
Yeah. So for some reason, I got talked into buying one and had like a mic. It's supposed to be great digital sound, whatever. Yeah. So I would take that to some of my cover band gigs just to have recordings of it, and it's cool. It's cool now that I have those recordings because I can. Tell the difference between how I play now and how I played then. But I don't record my gigs now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I have some recordings of like first times of me singing live. I think it was like a church thing, and oh boy, that's a painful recording to listen to.
I mean, a lot of times now, people will just record video. So, like our drummer, or I've had drummer friends that set up their GoPros.
Oh yeah.
Around them. So it's mostly drummers that record their performances. I guess, I don't know. But unless I'm like actually vlogging, like doing a tour vlog, I'll set up a camera for that.
Yeah.
And doing Facebook live streams or YouTube live streams from stage, that's being popular now. Now that we have the ability with our smartphones and whatnot, we can do that. So it's more probably video recordings than audio recordings.
Yeah, I guess that's what's happening nowadays much more often than just the audio recording. Anything you want to add? Like, is there some part of preparing or like going through a gig that I didn't mention in my questions?
I can't think of anything offhand. I mean, there's certain things like what if something happens with your gear?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if something happens on stage with your gear, and you kind of have to do live troubleshooting in the middle of a song.
Yeah.
And that's happened to me multiple times. It's hard to deal with. It kind of depends on the gig, but a lot of times, say you're playing a song and suddenly you have no sound.
Yeah.
That's probably the worst thing that'll happen. Yeah. A lot of times it's something in your pedal board. So the quickest thing you can do is just bypass your pedal board and go straight into the amp. If you can. If your amp is clean and you're playing a death metal gig and all your distortion is coming from your pedals, that might be a little bit too hard. But there was one situation I had in Australia at a country festival where something was shorting in my pedal board, and I basically, the sound for that gig was kind of slightly overdriven. So I unplugged my cable and went directly to the amp, which was like a Vox AC30, and I just dimed it. I just cranked it up. And it sounded great, but it wasn't my sound. But in a pinch, that worked. And the sound guy was probably horrified because it was super, super loud. That's all I could do. And I basically played the rest of that gig like that. Yeah. So I didn't have any delays or I didn't have a tuner. It was awful. So, what else? But like I've had friends that have had mess ups, and it's usually been something in the pedal board. And in the middle of a show, you can't really check every single patch cable, unless you get lucky and know exactly which one it is. But a lot of times, the only thing you can do is go straight to the amp. And then I've had other issues where like the electronics in my guitar was shorting out. Oh. Which is probably there's really nothing you can do with that. Yeah. That's why it's good to have a second guitar. Because of the electronics. Yeah. So Let's see what else. Can't think of any other horror stories that I've had on the road.
Yeah.
Amps, amps have gone down. Like I've blown fuses on amps before. So that's another thing. Maybe bring an extra pack of fuses for your amp. At the very least, you don't have to bring like an extra set of tubes, but bring an extra pack of fuses. If your amp is notorious for blowing fuses, definitely. I had a Marshall, actually. You can see it behind there. The Marshall back there. I can't remember what was happening with it, but it kept on blowing fuses. And then I finally took it to an amp repair guy, and he fixed it. It might have been like just a faulty transformer or something. But that's probably the most I would bring as far as being prepared. Yeah.
I'm guessing nowadays you could grab like I have a 2-note cab M over there, which you could just put at the end of the pedal board, and it fits in a gig
That's
bag.
actually a great idea, just having something like that as a backup.
Yeah, it sounds very decent, and you can just go DI to the front of house from there. So
also, bring an extra pack of strings.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because if you're on a gig where you have a break, you can always change strings in the middle of the break if you pop a string or something.
Yeah.
I think that's it. That's like the gigging toolkit.
I mean, this is a lot of things that I wish I had known. Because
this stuff that I've basically learned from experience, and I've had to deal with not doing those things and learning like, oh, okay, I'm gonna bring this time so I don't get screwed.
And I'm guessing it's also like usually when you play your first shows, you're like a teenager, like youngish, and especially for the guys who are in rock bands, I don't think those guys, me included, are like really good at listening for instruction. Like, we know what to do. We are the rock band.
I should. Oh man, there might be video online, but my very first gig when I was like in 6th grade. I think maybe 7th grade or something. I was playing at a school dance, and I remember like I didn't know how to set up the PA system or the amps or whatever. Yeah. So I put everything with a speaker on the very front of the stage. So my amp and like the PA system, we didn't have monitors.
Yeah.
My amp and everything was right at the edge of the stage.
That
and so
makes a lot
I was
of
behind.
sense.
Yeah, I was behind it, and I'm like, I guess this is how you set up. But yeah, I learned from then.
Yeah, now I want to find that video now.
I'm sure I'll find it. I think it's one of my videos where it's like reacting to my old gigs.
Oh, that's cool. I have very few of those. I think I should have like a gig from when I was at 9th grade. We played like Evanescence covers or something.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you should do that.
I need to find those.
That was fun.
Those would be awesome. I think I need to ask around a few friends.
Yeah.
We can make. Yeah. But hey,
it's out there.
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm talking to this camera because we have a funky camera setup. Thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it. Guys, check out RJ's channel. Amazing player, cool guy, and knows a lot of stuff.
Thank you, Vladimir, for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, links below in the description for his channel. And if we find that video he's talking about, do that video as well. Just for fun. And yeah, ask any questions about this stuff. And if you have any ideas for future Master the Basics videos, write your ideas down in the comment section below. Like, share, subscribe, all of the YouTube things. Catpic Studios t-shirts, multiple t-shirts, and jam tracks. Links to those in the description as well if you want to support what I do. And thanks for watching. I shall see you next time.